Welcome to the Health Coach Nation podcast. My name is Hailey Rowe, and I'm a sales and marketing coach and LinkedIn lead generation service provider. I work with health, life, and mindset coaches and online service-based business owners to help them get more sales, shift their time to the client-generating activities instead of just the busy work, and overcome that social media overwhelm. Let's get into the show. If you're ready to take on your next paying clients, I have good news. My free 4 Basics of Client Attraction and How to Stand Out class is live at haileyrowe.com/client-attraction. In the class, you're going to learn the top 2 traits I recommend for most coaches and entrepreneurs if they really want to turn this into a career. You're going to learn how you can build demand for your services and stop getting crickets on your posts. You're going to learn the sales roadmap I used to improve my sales conversion rate and help my clients do the same. And you're going to learn so much more. So go to haileyrowe.com/client-attraction and get your copy of the class today. Super passionate about helping health and wellness coaches with their websites, making that strategic. And she is somebody who can help you create a high converting website. So we're going to talk a little bit about what does it take to do that. Maureen, thanks for being here. How did you get into the online space?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited for the opportunity. So I like to say my online journey started with a boy, a big problem, and a blog. Back in 2013, my oldest son was diagnosed with selective mutism, which is an anxiety disorder where they can speak freely in some situations where they feel comfortable, but then in other situations, like for my son, it was school, he would completely go mute and couldn't speak because of anxiety. So that pulled me online. I got into some Facebook groups, asking questions. And over time, through working with our treatment specialists, I started learning a lot and was giving a lot of value back in these Facebook groups. And someone mentioned to me I should really start like a blog to teach people kind of about what we did to help our son overcome it. And so that is how I got into the online space. And over time, I incorporated in digital products, and I learned how to create courses and things like that. And I got a book deal with a traditional children's book publisher because I had grown this audience. So people started asking me, how did you do this? Can you help me do this? And I really loved helping people get online. I took some web design courses in the past, and I just really never thought it was going to be something I did, but I fell into the web design and helping people set up that online storefront, basically, so that they could start bringing people into their world, educating them, sharing their knowledge, all that stuff. So that is kind of how I got into it. And it started with me designing exclusively on WordPress, and I did that for quite a while. But over time, I realized that a lot of people struggle with WordPress because it can be very tech heavy if you're not, in that web design world. And I found that even though I gave step-by-step instructions and courses, people really struggle with that. So then I found Showit a few years ago, which is another website design platform. And I fell in love. I transferred my entire site over to Showit, my blog that I had for years. And I started teaching people on that and doing custom work on there. And I will never go back. It was like I think it's like the best kept secret online. I think it's the best platform, easy to use and very powerful. So that kind of takes me to where I am today. I'm a Showit designer for health coaches and practitioners, entrepreneurs to get them that premium clients through strategic web design.
Nice. All right. So tell me a little bit about how you define premium clients, because I think a lot of people want to get clients and want to get clients who are willing to pay for their services. So tell me a little more about what you mean by that.
Yeah, so I think depending on your messaging and how you show up online, you're going to attract a certain type of person. And when I first started out, I knew I was attracting a lot of people with very low budgets that weren't clear on really what they wanted. Wishy-washy, would just kind of ghost you. And I knew that wasn't the type of person that I wanted to work with. And so I had to try to figure out, okay, what is it that I feel would be a like, who do I want to work with? So you have to get really clear on who you want to work with and where they are in their journey. Because if you're starting with complete beginners, they're going to be on a different level, and they're going to need a lot more education before they're ready to invest. When I say premium, people who are ready to invest, that they know their field, they know what they want, and they're ready to invest. So that is how I kind of define a premium client. And so I think your messaging has a lot to do with who you attract. So we really try to zone in on getting the right messaging, really speaking to the pain points of the exact person you're trying to reach. When I work with clients, I do have a whole copy guide, because your messaging is a huge part of your site. It's not just a pretty site. Like, there's a lot of strategy to it to bring in those right clients. And the right clients, they need to build that trust and authority. They're not looking for pretty. They're looking for, do you understand my problem? Can you help me get to that next level? So that's kind of what I mean by that.
I love that. And on our homepages, what are some important things that we need to do with the layout of it, or the messaging on it, or the way we talk about the problems? What are some things we should be considering to make sure the premium clients are like, yes, this is the person I need?
Yeah. So that's a big question. So there's a lot. I guess maybe one thing that you want to make sure you're not doing, that I do see a lot of people doing, is making the site all about them. So that's like a first thing. You want to make sure that when they hit your page, you're speaking to that client, their pain points, so they know exactly within, I think you have like 0.5 seconds to make an impression before they leave. So you got to tell them right up front your unique value proposition, I call it. Who you help, how you help them, what's the transformation. So I tell my clients that above the fold, it should be like helping who's your ideal person, do what is it that the problem that you're trying to help them solve, so that what's the transformation. So in that, it can be tricky. That can be a very hard sentence to create. And I do work with my clients a lot on that, because it's one of the most important things. As soon as they hit your site, you got to be able to say that succinctly, and they have to be able to understand it immediately. Like, you don't want to use flowery words, or, you see a lot of that. You want to just hit them right away. And then right with that, you want to have a call to action. Like, okay, is this for me? Is this not for me? And then you have to tell them exactly what steps you want them to take.
Nice.
So that's kind of right above the fold. And then if they're not ready to take that action right away, right below it, I usually recommend talking about fleshing out some of those pain points, so they can say, oh, wow, this person really understands me. So getting very clear again on your ideal customer and knowing what their pain points are. So kind of fleshing that out, kind of digging in a little bit to let them know that you understand it, but also bringing up that pain point,
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, putting how you can help, kind of talking about some of the solutions, not really talking about yourself yet, but saying some of the solutions that you have for them. And then further down, you can get into more, if you want to have like a little bio that says, here's who I am. They can learn more about you if they want, but your homepage should really be speaking completely to them and their problem and the solution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So speaking to the problem, speaking to the transformation, helping them realize, okay, this person can help me. What are some other things that when it comes to website strategy, we need to be strategic about, or we need to consider and not skip over?
Yeah. So a lot of it comes down to, people are visual, so we got to make sure it looks good. And that is under the umbrella of like a clean user experience. And so we can break that down a little bit, where we're talking about, we can start with images. That's the first thing. Like, a lot of times you see too many stock images, or just not enough personality. You want to bring in pictures, if you can, that are your pictures, that are clear. I know not everyone can afford brand photography when you're first starting out, but if you can get some clear, nice pictures, of either you helping a client, if you're in the like fitness space, or if you're a practitioner, getting some images of where you work, things that aren't necessarily headshots, but images that can build trust. Because a lot of times you'll see images that just don't work, or they have an amazing message or program, and then the images are just not great. Mm-hmm. The other thing is a lot of times people will want to put a ton of text on their site. And I think that's just human. You want to tell them everything you have. But I always tell people that your audience is going to scan your website. They're not going to read it word for word like you would like a paper or something. So you want to have it broken down with headlines, with the bold, and then subheadlines, and then breaking up your paragraphs with like 1 to 2 sentences per paragraph or bullet points. It's very much out the window of what you learned in English class. You want to have it short and sweet and to the point.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, definitely. So what was maybe like a shift that you've worked on with a client, or something that really helped their website performance, or maybe share like something that would inspire people to be like, okay, I can see how my website could be useful?
Yeah. So one of the things we really try to do is some automation, because we want your website to work for you, because you're doing the marketing to get them to your site. So once they're on your site, you want it to be working for you. So like you don't have to do the work. So a lot of times we'll be incorporating things like email marketing integrations, where we're putting in forms for their freebie. Like I know you talk about the pre-offer, and putting in information or either a call to action button in the header saying sign up for my free guide or checklist or whatever it is, grab this checklist. We're putting it in the footer. We're also putting it throughout the site so that they can get into your world. Even if like once you get them to your site, you've done your job, because now they are directed to where they need to go. So what I do suggest is always integrating email marketing. I work with my clients so they can, if they don't have email marketing, I use and recommend Kit, and they have a free program up to 10,000 subscribers. So we get them on that, because that's such a big part of your website and marketing, is getting them into your world, because it's something like 75% of people will never come back to your site once they leave it. So if you did all the hard work to get them there, we want to make sure they're taking the action you want them to take. So whether that's signing up for a discovery call, getting on your email list, we have those call to actions throughout the site to get them to take that next step.
Nice.
So that's one of the things. Also integrating like booking software. So if they are booking a call, getting that all automated so that once they book it, they get into your calendar. Just things to make your website work for you.
Yeah. Okay. And what are some ways we can make the call to action enticing, or really inspire people to take that call to action?
Yeah. So we definitely want to put it in key spots above the fold, right before they need to scroll. In the header, you also want to make your buttons a very bold color. So when I do branding with people, we usually pick, I go through a whole branding questionnaire and process, and we usually have an accent color, and that will be the color that we'll use for the buttons. And it's usually a much bolder color from the rest of the color palette, so that it really stands out and makes them want to click on it. Also, the copy on your button makes a big difference too. Like instead of just saying learn more, being like grab my cheat sheet, or yes, I want in, like things like that. That's more of an action copy message where they're going to want to click more than just learn more.
Yeah, I love that. Are there any like fun facts we should know about websites and things like that? Because like, for example, I've heard interesting things like, purple call to action buttons tend to work, or red or something works better than, such and such. Like, is there anything kind of fun we should know about that?
Yeah, I mean, there is something to color psychology. I usually, because we have a strict branding palette, unless that color, like I think red works better, like those brighter, bold colors. I think blue means calm. unless I'm not going to go out of my way to put a certain color unless it's really goes with their color palette.
Right.
But some fun things that you could introduce that I like doing with clients, like even I'm trying to think, I think a lot of the fun can come from showing your personality through your copy, like, and your images, where like if you like doing something that's not normal, or like you have a fun hobby or something, and sharing that in your images, or if you want to come across, one of the things I ask my clients is like, what's your personality? How do you want to come across? Do you want to come off as conservative? Are you more edgy? And weaving that into the colors and your images and things like that to really let your personality shine through, because it's all about authenticity and showing up as your authentic self. And we want that to show in your website. So when they book a call with you, they're not like confused, like, oh, I'm getting a completely different person than I thought I was getting when I was on their website.
Yeah. Nice.
So,
Okay. So making sure it matches, the person behind the brand. Yeah.
And even like, sorry, I just thought of one more thing. Even some, not a ton of interactive elements because it can get too busy, but things like quizzes as your freebie. That's something I use where people are being a little more interactive. They're taking a quiz, or just a little bit of movement or transitions on the page where something slides in. And you have to be careful with not doing too much of that, but just adding a little bit of that can add some fun little elements, draw people into like a certain spot you want them to see.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And what about on our website? Is there anything we should be aware of that we really need to have just from a, legal perspective, or, I know there's a privacy policy or something like that. Like, do you do that with your clients? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I recommend my clients have a privacy policy, a terms and conditions, and their disclaimer on their page at the minimum. There's a whole thing with accessibility now, which when I work with my custom clients, we do go through an accessibility checklist, but there's also accessibility disclaimers if you want. But the main three are those three that I just mentioned. And I don't write them for them. I'm not a lawyer, but I do give them some recommendations. The ones I recommend to all my students and clients, they are written by a lawyer and it's plug and play. So she gives it to you and there's like little spots where you can just, it says like, enter your business name here and plug them in. So they're the ones that I love. But for those people who are more of a budget, I do give some recommendations for free ones. But I always say, hey, like, they're free. I don't know how good they are. But yeah, I can always let you know, like, if you want to put in the show notes, the ones that I recommend, because it is a really important part that a lot of people don't think of when they're building their site.
Yeah, for sure. And, I had a lawyer on the show, Amira, who I recommend her templates and stuff like that. So I'm wondering if we have similar crossover there. But
yeah, great. Amira from the Self Guru. Yeah, she's who I recommend.
Yeah, so we'll put her links in there in the show notes. But
great.
As far as, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think people just don't even know that, and then that's not good. So, and accessibility, can you define that for us?
Yeah, so there can be a lot that goes into accessibility, but from a basic standpoint, you want to make sure that people who have disabilities can access your site. So one of the main ones that comes up is visibility, if they're vision impaired. And I actually recently worked with someone who was completely legally blind, and we went through her site. And even if you're not working with a client who's legally blind, you need to make sure that your site is set up so people who have visual impairments or auditory issues can still use your site. So what I do, and I do it on my custom sites, and I educate my DIY template students to do, is every single page has, for your images, you want to label your images for text readers, so describing the image. And then also once it's uploaded, there is an alt text section on Show It where you're going to describe the image. And it is a lot of work to get that all in, but it's necessary to have. So you can do that on your own with a DIY template, or that's something that's part of my design process where we put that in, as well as a lot of people don't think of this, but the hierarchy of your site, where your headings, your titles, your headings, your subheadings, how they're ordered within your site with text tags. It's getting a little more techy than I want to get, but with H1 tags and H2 tags, you want to make sure they're all tagged appropriately so that a screen reader can read those and get them to them correctly.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Great tips. So where can people stay connected with you, find you online, all the good things?
Yeah, so my website's thecreativeimpact.com. To get in touch with me or to think about working with me, creativeimpact.com/contact. And then I'm on YouTube at The Creative Impact. Instagram, it's The Creative Impact site because The Creative Impact was taken. And I have a few quiz freebies that I can give you, a few other freebies that I could give you to put in your show notes so people can find out what website platform might be best for them, or if they should DIY or get their site done by a professional.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Is there any final takeaway you want to leave the audience with if they're, wanting to convert more premium clients on their website?
Yeah, I just think that you need to be very clear. Make sure you're clear on your audience. Make sure that you are giving your audience the steps to take. So guide them with call to actions. You also want to make sure that your steps are easy to find. So your navigation is very easy to find. In the header, you want to put in the footer. Also with mobile, we didn't really get into that, but mobile design is a huge part of it. You make sure it looks good across all devices. And a lot of people forget when they're creating their mobile version that they also need a mobile navigation. It's going to look different than when it's on your desktop. So all things to keep in mind. Again, with my DIY templates, that it comes with a step-by-step course so that everything's taken care of for you. Because there's so many things to think of when you are creating a site that you want to convert.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much for listening to this podcast. And if it's really helpful for you, I'd really appreciate if you share it and/or leave a written podcast review. This tells the podcast sites that our show is useful and it will be promoted to more people that way. Thanks again.